morning and welcome. Welcome to Ria and Alka Show. We are so pleased. It is almost the end of the week. I cannot believe it's today's Wednesday, but the weeks just fly by, and we are so happy that you could join us this morning and really be here with us. We always value you, your time and showing up. So today we're going to be talking about, as all this week, we've been talking about success and money mindset. And what do you think about money? What comes to mind when you think about money? Do you feel joy? Do you feel at ease? Do you feel calm? So we would love to know what you think. And so let's get started. So welcome. My name is Alka.
My name is Ria, and welcome
to our
show.
So Ria, I'm going to pass the mic on to you.
Yes, thank you, Alka. Today's topic will be Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, increase our financial IQ. And today's topic would be information versus education, a part of the author's note. And it's very controversial because why we all go to school. And I know people who are into the old ways of thinking about education and schooling will find this a very hot topic. I know a lot of people will disagree, but hey, that's where, we share our information and we share our thoughts. So it's only our information. You don't have to take it by heart.
Exactly. Right. Let's keep it, let's keep it rolling and see what you guys really are going to listen to what Ria has to say.
All right. So I'm going to read a paragraph here from Robert Kiyosaki on information versus education. It is this author's opinion, so that's Robert Kiyosaki, that the lack of financial education in our school system is a cruel and evil shame. In today's world, financial education is absolutely essential for survival, regardless of whether we are rich or poor, smart or not smart. As most of us know, we now live in the information age. The problem with the information age is information overload. Today, there's so much information. The equation below explains why financial education is important. And the equation is information plus education equals knowledge. So the equation again is information plus education equals knowledge. Without financial education, people cannot process information into useful knowledge they can apply. Without financial knowledge, people struggle financially. Without financial knowledge, people do things like buy a house and think their home is an asset, or save money, realizing that since 1971, their money is no longer money, but a currency. Or do not know the difference between good debt and bad debt, or why the rich earn more yet pay less in taxes, or why the richest investor in the world, Warren Buffett, does not diversify. So that's the information versus education. So there's a lot of truth in it, in my opinion. So number one, right, financial education is absolutely essential for survival. I wish I would have known this early on as a young child, because then I would see things differently. Growing up, I was selling candies. So I was already into the financial world. I was already seeing it in my environment. I was selling candies to my classmates, to my friends, to my childhood friends, but I didn't realize that I needed more education, financial education, that my school in the Philippines did not provide for me. So I never learned how to grow and scale it. What about you, Alka? Have you had any financial knowledge growing up, and what have you realized growing up over these years? How important financial education is especially to young kids.
Absolutely, 100%. I do feel that financial education, and even myself, like you described, Ria, is that growing up, I did not know that, I mean, even at school, we were not taught about finance. We were not taught about the financial aspect in the curriculum, in the school curriculum. So when we are taught about financials and, you know, as part of the curriculum, then a child has a very happy and a healthy relationship, how to, you know, with money, how you to save money, how to spend money in the appropriate way, and you know, not to overspend. Because Ria, as we know, I mean, people who leave college, the credit card companies straight away give credit cards to the kids. And the kids then, you know, they have the card, they have that in their possession, and they spend, or they may overspend. So Ria, I think that is one of the dangers. I feel that when credit card companies, you know, give credit cards to the kids who are leaving college, who have left college, and now that they have the cards in their possession, they don't know what to do with it. And when they may overspend, and then, you know, they are left with a monthly statement that they handed with, but then the kids don't know what to do, or how do you pay off the debt on the credit card or the car loans, etc. So that is my feeling, Ria, that financial education needs to be part of the school curriculum.
I
Because it
agree.
wasn't in my time.
I
Yes.
agree. And that's where, you know, we as parents, we're actually the teachers. We cannot rely the education to our school teacher. We too, as parents, need to teach them. So what I do in my home, I teach my kids, George and Jaden, what asset is, what's liability is, what's income is, and what expenses. And so that's why we're doing the Apartment Prescription Kids book, to get the information, just simple information of what asset, you know, liability, income, and expense are, and how they can be an asset, kids, to their family. So I definitely agree that financial education, we as parents need to educate our kids early on, especially when they, you know, because their brain is at a young age absorbs so many knowledge. There's no information overload. You can give them as much as you want, but you want to feed the right information right to their brain. And that's why the book, Increase Your Financial IQ, says there's so much, we're in the information age, and there's so much information out there in the real world. We have information overload. So that's where the mentors come into play. Very important, because not everybody are doing what they're preaching. You know, they may have done one or two, but they're not doing it now. They're all only in the education. They're not actively doing it. So very important that we choose mentors who are continuously doing where we need to grow, where we need to do, right? Where we need to want to be. So the mentors we have should not be just satisfied where they are now. Our mentors should be always continuously learning the game, growing their knowledge. Because I don't know who the mentor was who said, if you're there, Brandon Dawson, he said, there's never an end, you know, you've never reached. And a lot of mentors actually said it. So Brandon Dawson mentioned it. John Maxwell also mentioned it, that you never arrive. There is no arriving. You're always, you know, moving forward. You're always growing. There's no arrival point. So that's the information overload. So choose the right mentors correctly. What do you have to say about mentors, Alka?
And I think we did speak about that. Yeah, absolutely. I think we did speak about that you can never say you arrived. And I think at one point we did touch on this, that you can't say as an entrepreneur that you have arrived, because as entrepreneurs, we're always constant, we're always evolving. Because if you're not evolving and you're not willing to learn and to implement what has been taught to you, then you know what, then you're going to disintegrate. So never say you have arrived. Always have the willingness, the mindset that you always want to be learning and you're always constant. So I feel that, Ria, mentors do come in our life for a reason. You know, as they say, the old adage goes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. The teacher will appear. So, my friends, what mentors truly align with you? And how do you process when you have had mentors in your life? So for me, my first mentor was Les Brown. Les Brown taught me about public speaking. Les Brown taught me about storytelling. And so he was my first mentor, and I learned a lot, but always be willing to learn. So Ria, I will say that, you know, mentors do come in our life for a reason. And also mentors come in our life because the student is always ready. The student is ready and willing, the willing and able. And my friends, we talked about this too. You have to be willing and able. These are the two main ingredients that will take you a long way. Are you willing? Are you willing to learn? And are you able to implement what you are learning? So Ria, that I will say 100%, you've got to find a mentor who is in true alignment with what you are wanting.
Well, thank you for that, Alka. The next topic that I want to discuss in this information versus education is money. So he said saving money is no longer, not that important, right? We have to learn how to use our money to work harder for us. He said money is no longer money, but a currency since 1971. So what that means is they've taken the gold standard off, and now money is just a currency. So what that means is that the money, it's going to be deflated. So right now, $1 is no longer $1. The cost of goods and the cost of services are increasing because the gold is no longer a standard. Then people can print money. The government can print money, right? Not people, but the government can print money. So when we put our money in the bank, it loses, it doesn't earn us anything. And that's what he means by, saving money is for losers. Because why? Because the money there, it depreciates. So what does currency mean? Currency means it's a current. It needs to be circulated. So let's think about this. The bank, when we put our money in the bank, we become liabilities to the bank. So what do they do with the money that we deposit to them? They have to trade it. They have to give it to others, to other businesses, to other investors 9 times. So for every $1 we put in the bank, they become a liability to the bank. So the bank deploys that $1 9 times. So money is a currency. What is currency? It's a current. It needs to move around. It needs to circulate. So guys, let's do what the bank is doing. We need to move our money. We need to circulate our money. Before we circulate, like what Alka said, information is very important. We have to follow mentors who have done it, and that's where we want to go. So Alka, anything that you would like to share with our viewers regarding saving money or money in general?
Yeah, what I would say is that when it comes to money, you have to be smart. And so it goes back to, having that financial knowledge, having if we were taught earlier on as part of the school curriculum, financial knowledge. So when it comes to like home economics, and I'll be honest with you, I am learning now, but you know what, you're never too late. How to save, how to spend, where you should spend, where not to spend, where to overspend. Sometimes, we overspend. And so when it comes to budgeting, always, have a spreadsheet. So when it comes to the properties that you might be investing in or any kind of stock investments, have a spreadsheet so you know where you've appreciated or depreciated on your investments. It is the best way. So I will say when it comes to money, always be mindful where you are spending, how you are spending, and where you are spending on, because that is going to be a gauge as to, do you have the financial knowledge? And if not, well, you're never too late to learn. Always be willing to learn, as Ria and I have shared. Always be willing to learn. Find a mentor who's been there, who's done that, where you want to go. So that would be my takeaways, Ria.
Thank you, Alka. Now, one more thing that I would like to discuss before we say goodbye to our viewers, to our listeners. Now, why the rich earn more money, yet they pay less in taxes? Can you imagine? The rich earn more money, yet they pay less in taxes. So success,
we'd like to know that. Yes.
Yes, success leaves clues. All we've got to do is follow it, and the wealthy have done it. So why do you think the wealthy, the rich, the wealthy have more money, yet they pay less in taxes? And Warren Buffett, he's very truthful about his income, right? He pays less taxes than his secretary. Can you imagine that? His secretary, who's earning less, the secretary pays more taxes than Warren Buffett, who's one of the world's wealthy, business entrepreneurs in the world, right? So why is that? So let's think, why do they pay less taxes and they have more? So why? Number one, it's done everywhere. The principle is the same. If it's true for one country, it's true for majority of the country. The government is here, but it cannot solve all of our problems. Like the US cannot, it has, stipend to the, unemployed or to those who cannot afford it, but their income, the money of the government is limited. So what do they need to do to have more money? They tax the people, right? So where does the money come from? Of course, from people. So what they do to get that is they incentivizes people, they incentivizes business to help solve the government's problem. So what are some of the government's problem? One is housing, one water, shelter, transportation, all these needs that we use every day, that we partake every day. Those are the government's problem, but the government cannot solve all of it. So it relies on private sector businessmen who works alongside with the government. So what does the government do? They incentivize the wealthy, they incentivize the businesses, they incentivize the entrepreneur to help solve the problem of the world. So then we should ask ourselves, what is the problem that we can help with our community? So for me, for example, I help solve my community's housing problem. So what does that do when I help provide houses to people in my community? That incentivizes me, but the government incentivizes not only me, but it incentivizes all the people. It incentivizes everyone in the community to help solve. Why? Because they give tax break. So the number one expense we have is taxes. So the number one way to reduce our tax is to solve our government's problem. When we help solve the government's problem, they give us tax breaks, tax deductions. So that's how the wealthy are able to earn more money, keep more money, because they are partners of the government. They solve the government's problem, and therefore they have all this tax break and they pay less tax. So my question to you is, for all of our listeners, how can we solve our government's problem? How can we contribute to our community solution? Let's be a solution to our community, and we will reap the rewards. So what are your final thoughts, things to say for our viewers, Alka, before we say goodbye to our viewers? Especially
absolutely. I love that. I mean, you know what, you have to be able to solve the problems, and the more that we can solve the problems in our communities. And the more that we can learn about money and money mindset, what we think about money, how do we think about money, that's going to go a long way in terms of learning. So we have to know the foundations. And I think that is very important, to knowing the foundations, and then we just build on that. But Ria, you just mentioned Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett, he is still living in his house. So he has all the money. Yes, he's the richest man, and yet he lives in a very humble home. He's not living in a mansion. He's not living in a fancy home, luxury home. He's very humble, very down to earth. So there are people who are rich, and yet they are humble at the same time.
And you know what I love about the wealthy? They have a lot of philanthropic activities. So what philanthropy means is that they give majority of their wealth to foundation for good causes. And, you know, that's what inspires me to be among them, to follow them, because only if we have a lot can we give a lot. There is a quote where, you know, when much is given, much there's a lot of responsibility when there's too much given. So what that means for me is, so when the wealthy are given a lot, they have a lot of responsibility, which is, you know, they try to solve the financial problems, you know, the economy problems, the business problems. And so much responsibility is required of them. And what they do, they also do philanthropic work. They have scholarships, they build churches, they have the library. So when we go to the library, there's free, we don't pay for an entrance. When we go to the parks, we don't pay any entrance. Who do you think supports all those? They are supported by the wealthy. And that's why we are able to enjoy free library, free museum, free parks, because of the money provided by the philanthropic works of the wealthy. So that hopefully would encourage each one of us, empower each one of us to do what the successful are doing. Like you said earlier, success leaves clues. All we've got to do is follow the crumbs.
Exactly, follow the crumbs, because they are leaving the trail, and we just have to follow that. So the rich, the wealthy, they have power. So with the wealthy, they're rich, and comes with power. So what comes with power is a responsibility. And so if we can just solve the community's problem, like one problem at a time, I think we will, we're going to be in such an amazing place, amazing communities that we can all come together. But friends, we have come to the end of the show, and I'm hoping that you have enjoyed the conversation around money. It is very important. You have to lay the foundations. You have to know the basics of money. So Ria, thank you so much for sharing with us. That is amazing knowledge. And so we will see you, friends, tomorrow, the same time, same place. For now, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from Ria. We'll see you tomorrow, guys. Take care. God bless, and happy investing.